So the second last topic from a ABAt competency standard is to identify and interpret basic graphs, lines, scatterplot and bar graph. So, so in ABA we use different types of graphs in order to show behavior. These are line, scatterplot and bar graph. Starting with the very first line graph. Okay, so let's see the graphical representation first to understand this. As you can see, this is a line graph. So line graph, as you can see, is changing with time because it is showing trends of behavior in it. These are known as data points, the circle that you can see here. For the day 1, day 2, day 3, these are basically the data points for each day, and these are connected with line. That's why we call it as line graph. Line graph is line graph is the most commonly used graph in ABA. Remember this for MCQ. So coming towards the interpretation of this table, so we mentioned time on horizontal axis, x-axis, and we mentioned the behavior on vertical axis, that is y-axis. As you can see here, object aggression count is mentioned, and here days are mentioned. So we have mentioned day 1 with 3, day 2 for 8, day 3 with 4, day 4 with 13 and day 5 with 10 object aggression count. So this graph is basically showing number of object aggressions per day for the client name Jack. So if the line is going up, we say that the behavior is increasing. So the behavior increased from day 1 to day 2. When the line is going down, we can say the behavior is decreasing. So the behavior decreased from day 2 to day 3. Then again there is a sudden increase from day 3 to day 4. So we will say that the behavior is increasing, and then again it is decreasing. That's how you interpret a line graph. Simply see the trends of behavior. If this line would be straight, we say that the behavior is stable. Same is mentioned here. Interpretation example, line is going up, behavior increasing, line is flat, behavior is stable, and if the line is going down, behavior is decreasing. We use line graph to track behavior frequency, duration or accuracy over days, weeks or sessions. Now scatter plot. So a scatter plot graph looks like this. This is the graphical representation of a scatter plot. Again, we have mentioned time here, which is hours of sleep per night, and we have mentioned number of problem behaviors on vertical y-axis. So you can see in 4 hours the number of problem behavior was around 23. Then again there are 3 data points here, 1, 2, and again there are multiple data points here. But remember, for scatter plot the data points are scattered in a graph. These are not connected with line. So what does it show? It shows relationships or patterns between two variables. Dots represent individual data points not connected by lines. We use scatterplot to identify patterns such as if a behavior happens at a specific time or under certain conditions. We are not seeing if this time is relatable to that. We are simply seeing the relationship or pattern between two different variables. So interpretation of this scatterplot can be the cluster of dots at a certain point may indicate a behavior trigger. Spread out dots with no pattern may show randomness. So you can see the hours of sleep per night and the number of problem behaviors. So whenever the hours of sleep are less, the number of problem behaviors are more. So we can see the relationship between number of problem behavior and hours of sleep here. We don't have to connect these with each other and identify the trend here. Last is bar graph. So bar graph looks like this. We are representing the behavior by bar here. So you can see items presented like iPads, Skittles, Play-Doh, bubbles, fingerprint and stuffed animals, and you can see number of times item picked. So iPad was picked 14 times, Skittles were picked 5 times, Play-Doh were picked 6 times, bubbles and so on. So this is basically 4-year-old client's preference assessment result. A bar graph is used to show here what? Comparison between different items. So basically, what does a bar graph present? It presents, each bar represents a summary like total frequency, average score, etc. And when to use this? To compare performance across tasks, people, days and so on. Interpretation example is taller bar, which means higher value, shorter bar, lower value, and it easily shows differences between different categories. As you can see, this was the taller bar, so higher value, and this is the lowest bar, so lower value. So basically, why do we use these graphs? Because these graphs can present a lot of details in a single picture, in a single graph. You can simply make graphs to represent multiple data points, and this makes it easy to understand behavior patterns. Summary table. Line graph is best for trends. Scatterplot is best for identifying patterns or correlations, and bar graph is best for comparing categories for or groups. Interpretation tip. Line graph. If the slope is up, behavior is increasing. If the slope is down, behavior is decreasing. And if the slope is flat, behavior is stable. And for scatterplot, look for clusters, trends, or randomness. And for bar graph, taller bar indicates higher value, so the visual differences stand out. Coming towards the MCQs, which graph is best used to show trends over time? Line graph. A scatter plot is most useful for identifying patterns or relationship between variables. What does a taller bar in a bar graph represent? A higher value. In a line graph, a flat line usually means the behavior is stable. Which graph uses individual dots to represent data points without connecting lines? Scatterplot. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.